Welcome back to the program. It's Hot Topics. I'm your host, Frank Roche. Great to have you back with me in my podcast. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video. Appreciate your support. Tell your friends and family to do the same. Quick check on some things today. It's Monday the 16th. On Sunday, second attempt on former President Donald Trump's life. Two in just a touch over 2 months. It's bad news. Thankfully, this time, it appears like the gunman didn't get off any shots, had buried himself in the hedgerows around Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida. Apparently spent many hours there scoping out the situation. A Trump hater, a Democrat supporter, a nut job, concerned about democracy, puts together a plan to shoot the president on his golf course. Thank goodness it failed, and thank goodness for the witness who was nearby, who saw this guy run from the hedgerow, the fence line, get in his car and drive away, took a picture, was able to share the information with police officers. And they were able to capture this guy peacefully on Route 95 North. A sad state. Let's let the voters decide who's going to be the winner of the race. The left was quick to blame Donald Trump for this assassination attempt, blaming his rhetoric for another attack on himself. Republicans are pointing out the hateful rhetoric coming from the left for many, many years now. And the repeated mantra by everyone in the Democrat Party, that is elected officials anyway, saying that Trump can't be president. We can't allow Trump to be president. Trump can't be president. This can't happen. He will not be president. Well, if it's not going to be managed through the voting booth, how else are we going to stop him from being president? Tough situation. Thank goodness nothing happened. This guy so far has only been charged with felony gun possession charges, 2 counts. No indication that he's being charged with attempted assassination, attempted murder. First reports on these things are usually wrong. So you want to give it 24, 36 hours for everything to shake out. There's been a slow roll on the investigation from the July 13th assassination attempt. Let's hope there's not going to be a slow roll on this one. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, said they're going to conduct their own investigation. But this has got to stop. Donald Trump still doesn't have full Secret Service protection, apparently. And this was said in press conferences by authorities yesterday, that if he had full Secret Service protection, the whole course would have been surrounded, inspected, prepared. There is some concern about how this man knew Donald Trump was going to be playing golf today, given that it wasn't on his public schedule and apparently not a planned event as of Sunday morning. Yet this guy was on the property, around the property, some 12 hours in advance. So that's going to be interesting to find out. Man from Hawaii was not allowed to buy guns, had many infractions with the law in the past, including weapons of mass destruction. Somebody who got this weapon, he had set himself up a little defense mechanism, having some ceramic tiles in backpacks hanging on the fence. He left quickly, didn't take anything with him. He's got a strong connection to supporting the Ukraine war and actually has been over there trying to support them. So we need these things to stop. Let's just let voters decide in the polling booth on the 5th of November. That's the best way to do this. Anyway, thank goodness he's safe. Hopefully it won't happen again. I think it's time to give former President Trump full Secret Service security. And it seems like President Biden intimated that last night when he made some comments about needing more funding to get the necessary security in place. So that's good news. Like Donald Trump, don't like Donald Trump, we can't have him being assassinated. We can't have multiple efforts here at him being assassinated. We have to come together and make sure that he is properly protected. Other things on my mind today are Ukraine, Russia, and a lot of talk at the end of last week about allowing for long-range missiles to be fired from Ukrainian airspace or land into Russia to take out Russia's standoff military capabilities, particularly missile attacks and missile attacks from aircraft, where they can fire into Ukraine from Russian soil. Ukraine can protect themselves by shooting down the missiles or the drones, but Ukraine wants the ability to take out the weapons on the ground in Russia before they can fire the missiles. This is a slippery slope. What bothered me last week was Pierre Trudeau and Keir Starmer from the UK coming together in support of allowing Ukraine to use these long-range weapons. And I want to just say to these two gentlemen, who do you think you are? You're putting American lives on the line here. Without the US, Canada and UK are nothing. NATO ex-America cannot support Ukraine. NATO ex-America cannot take on Russia. We don't want war with Russia, period. Not only because of the devastation to us and them in other countries and the environment, but because Russia is going to continue to exist. We're going to continue to exist. At some point, this has got to come to an end. The likely scenario for the outcome of the Ukraine-Russia war is a negotiated peace settlement where Russia gets Donbass, Shapranitsa, I know I butchered that name, and Kherson, that whole southeastern part of Ukraine that Russia currently holds, and Crimea. Sad, horrible. You got to feel for the Ukrainians, but the devastation, the loss of life, the ruin of cities, the breakup of families, the devastation to the environment, hurting everybody in the region. President Putin has just put forth they're going to be recruiting another 130,000 men to go into battle. Russia's getting their ass kicked. Ukraine has done a pretty good job, but Ukraine's getting their ass kicked too. And Russia has more of everything than Ukraine. And this proxy war can't last much longer. If Donald Trump wins in November, it's suspect. Republicans are not on board this unending support for Ukraine. It's a tough decision, no question. Putin's a bad dude. Russia's a pain in the ass. But we don't want war with Russia. We go to war with Russia, we're having war on American soil. For the first time since few pinpricks during World War II, but primarily since the Civil War. We don't want it. What else is on my mind today? J.D. Vance, Mr. Vice President nominee. Shut up. I don't think J.D. Vance knows his role. And I'm certain Donald Trump regrets this selection. J.D. Vance is causing trouble for Trump. He's got to keep his mouth shut on his own opinions. He is here to support Donald Trump and Donald Trump's policies. He's not there to make policy or to suggest policy Trump should be involved in. And in fact, J.D. Vance was in the media on Friday saying that, oh my God, I got myself in trouble with the boss because I keep saying things that aren't his words, that aren't his policies. Trump should have gone with Burgum, the governor, no question about it. He was concerned, rightly so, about the age of the ticket. But J.D. Vance has not helped him along very much. He's causing lots of trouble. Now, when the debate comes along, I think we're going to see J.D. Vance do very well against Tim Walz. And that will make lots of people feel better, including myself. But I suspect Trump is not happy with this decision ultimately. I want to talk about some suggestions Trump has put forth in terms of public policy over the past couple of weeks when it comes to taxes. He wants to end tax on Social Security. He wants to end tax on tip income. And he wants to end the tax on overtime. I'm on board 100% to Social Security. No tax on Social Security. That was the original plan. That was changed in the 1980s, desperate for tax revenue. But Social Security is money we've already been taxed on. Got to stop the silliness of taxing Social Security income, even though it's a low rate. It's got to stop. So I'm on board that. Great policy decision. No tax on tips. I'm not so sure. There's lots of blowback that could occur here. When we talk about taxes and changing tax policy, the number one source of information, the best source of information, is going to be the taxfoundation.org. Tax Foundation, phenomenal when it comes to evaluating tax proposals. And they did a wonderful job here reviewing tax proposals with respect to tips. Alex Murciano has done a wonderful analysis. And he cites a study done by Ernie Tedeschi at Yale Budget Lab, indicating only 2.5% of the workforce works in tipped occupations. And only 5% of those workers that work in tipped occupations are at the bottom 25% of earners. So the vast majority of low and middle income earners will be out of the loop. The shortcomings of this idea is that by making one type of income exempt from income tax, while other types of income remain taxable, wages, the proposal would make more employees and businesses interested in moving from full wages to a tip-based payment approach. Again, quoting Alex Murciano. That would mean more service industries adopting restaurant industry approach of a list price up front and expected voluntary tip at the end of the transaction. So as I know from trying to do this analysis, and as Alex knows, the tax foundations knows, because there's so many potential blowback scenarios from this proposal, it's hard to estimate the actual cost. But a rough estimate they've come together with is about 107 billion over 10 years. So there could be some behavioral effects insofar as higher tips and existing tipped occupations could incrementally raise the cost of doing business. We might get untipped occupations introducing tipping and could make the policy dramatically more expensive. Alex from the Tax Foundation suggests a scenario where a highly compensated lawyer or accountants begin to receive some of their income as voluntary tips. There are already efforts in the House and the Senate to put bills forward about this. But I think this is likely to be a mistake. We need to get some bracketing around this. No tax on the first $15,000. No tax on the first $10,000. Give some sort of tax benefit break, but no. The best approach is just to lower overall income taxes on low and middle income workers, on wages. Then Trump has an idea about not taxing overtime pay, a blanket exemption from the income tax. Garrett Watson, again from Tax Foundation, Erica York did some work on this already, although they haven't done much analysis yet. This is likely to cost a rough estimate about 227 billion over 10 years. So we're at 334 billion over 10 years for these two tax proposals. And there's no discussion of spending cuts. And so these tax proposals by Trump have only one effect: more deficits, more debt. Now, there's not a lot of details on the plan yet, but based on what they've heard already, this would be another distortion of the labor market. Employees would be encouraged to take more overtime work, and hourly and salaried non-exempt jobs would become more attractive if the benefit is not extended to salaried employees. The proposal would also affect employers, as employees would find ways to request more overtime work, raising employment labor costs. So not good idea. And what really bothers me about this particular one is that when we think of the use of overtime pay, we have to think of public sector employees who abuse overtime pay already now. Police officers, firefighters, garbage men, public sector employees generally, government employees, state employees, city employees. Overtime rules are already widely abused at this local, state, and government level for public employees. And this would incentivize more of that abuse. And so I don't think we have the right incentives in place with these tax ideas. I'm on board the Social Security tax reduction. But if we want to go this route on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay, there has to be some thresholds. The first $15,000, the first $10,000, you're tax exempt, and then it kicks back in. This is fiscally irresponsible. And this isn't much different from Kamala Harris. Neither candidate is talking at all about deficit reduction, balanced budgets, reducing debt. Kamala Harris, we already know, is for more spending. Her tax policies are awful. They're all about raising taxes, which are going to reduce tax revenue because the tax increases are so egregious and people will move their money. Increasing capital gains tax, the tax on unrealized gains. So both candidates are doing nothing to satisfy Americans who are concerned about our unrelenting deficit spending, our massive amount of debt. No discussion at all of a balanced budget, cutting spending. Remember now, we can balance the budget by cutting spending, raising taxes, or some combination of both. But we don't have a tax revenue problem. We have a spending problem. Not good fiscal policy presented by Trump. Populists, going to be a hook for some. But from a purely fiscal perspective and economics perspective, not the best policies. And by the way, inflationary. We want to help out lower and middle income Americans, just reduce the overall tax burden. Income tax, FICA tax. We don't need these gimmick tax ideas. All right, then lastly, today is the 16th of September. Tomorrow, the 17th and 18th, the Federal Reserve starts a two-day meeting to discuss interest rate policy. The Federal Open Market Committee, the Board of Governors, and 5 Federal Reserve Bank presidents will come together with their staff, review the Green Book, the Blue Book, the Beige Book, and make a decision on interest rates and money supply on Wednesday afternoon. Priced in right now is a 25 basis point cut in the federal funds rate, taking it from 5.5% to 5.25%. I think this is a mistake. I think the Fed should remain on hold, but that looks like what they're going to do on Wednesday. There are many calling for a 50 basis point cut. That will not happen. We won't see that on Wednesday. The box the Fed has got themselves in, and there's plenty of data that suggests the Fed should not be cutting rates anytime now, that we still have an inflationary problem. The labor market, to the extent it's a mess, the common metrics, which is to say the unemployment rate, U3, is within a range we call full employment. And so to cut rates now in order to reduce unemployment rates would be pulling the trigger too early, because we're well within the range in which we identify full employment unemployment. We call it NAIRU, the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. And right now we're right in there. Now the problem is if the Fed decides through careful analysis that it's not time to cut rates on Wednesday, that's going to spook the one market they seem most concerned about, and that's the equity market. And so the equity market is already priced in at least 25 basis point rate cut by the Fed. So as the bond market, and if the Fed were to dissatisfy the market players, stocks would collapse, bond prices would sell off, and the Fed would come in with their plunge protection team to keep stocks up. Absent that need for the Fed, which they've brought on by themselves, that is plunge protection for stocks, they could act normally. That is to say, satisfy their dual mandate of stable prices, inflation around 2% on a medium-term basis, and unemployment at full employment, which is around 4 to 5%. So they got themselves in a box, and they've been in the box since 2009. Their reputation has been sullied. Monetarists' reputation have been sullied. And so I think it's a mistake to go 25, but I think they're going to go 25. I think markets will like it. And we'll have to watch carefully the statement they release after the decision Wednesday afternoon. All right, keep an eye on markets right now. We see the S&P 500 still near all-time highs, just insane. We have the 10-year Treasury trading 3.6%, well off the 5% level of nearly 5% just a few months ago. Looking at the bond market from the 2-year Treasury to the 10-year Treasury, we have a upward sloping yield curve, which is fantastic. But from the 1 month or the Fed funds through the 30-year, we still have a inversion in the yield curve, which is forever meant a recession on the way. But because of massive fiscal spending in Washington, D.C., and a huge increase in population through immigration, that's been staved off. Oil trading $7.50, up $1.85 on buying the dip. Supply is exceeding demand right now as the global economy slows down. Gold trading at all-time highs, 2006-10, silver at 31.08, bid up on concerns about inflation and uncertainty in the world. Dollar index, weak still, trading 167. Dollar yen, 140.61, down from 157. Huge move, really crushing the yen carry trade. Euro dollar trading 111.30. And then just a quick look at the economic calendar for the week. No data today. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we have some data. Retail sales for the month of August. That can be a market mover. Looking for down 0.2% against up 1% in the month of July. At 9:15 on Tuesday, with capacity utilization and industrial production for August, market movers. Looking for 77.9 in capacity utilization. Looking for industrial production up 0.1%. And then on Wednesday, as always, MBA mortgage application at 7 a.m. for the week ending the 14th of September. Also have housing starts for the month of August, looking for 1.31 million units on an annualized basis. That would be above the July number. Interest rate decision by the Fed on Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m. Thursday, as always, initial unemployment claims for the week ending the 14th. We have the Philly Fed Business Conditions Index for the month of September. Then on Friday, no data for the U.S. economy of any meaningful type. That's a quick check on markets and things on my mind. Thanks for supporting the channel. Don't be afraid to comment, subscribe, like. That's all I have for you right now. Always try to buy American.